we've been learning from virologists and what I'm sure you've been seeing in your work, to actually make the leap from just a pig to a bat to a human, it requires much more gain of function than just that. To do that sort of thing, we've discovered might take hundreds of years for it to kind of happen naturally. But it's just the sort of work that's being done in these labs to artificially create that situation, which may not even ever happen ordinarily.
The thing that we can't avert our eyes from is that it effectively accelerates the existence and the proximity to humans of the threat.
And these, in other words, some of the threats that they've developed might never have naturally occurred had they not done the work.
Correct. That's my understanding. They are out to look for enemies, ostensibly for the purpose of figuring out how to defeat them. And
sounds like a common refrain.
That's at best a very dangerous thing. I mean, you have Richard E. Bright, an eminent scientist, and he calls this kind of work that they do, going to these caves, and he says it's not science, it's Indiana Jones adventurism. It's the definition of insanity, he calls it. And you hear that phrase quite a bit. The former head of the Royal Scientific Society in 2014 called this kind of work incredibly dangerous and crazy, this gain-of-function work.
You quote Lord May, who's the former president of the Royal Society, as saying, "The work they are doing is absolutely crazy. The whole thing is exceedingly dangerous. Yes, there is a danger, but it's not rising from the viruses out there and the animals. It's rising from the labs of grossly ambitious people."
Yeah, I think specifically he was talking there about the work that was done in Holland and the work that was done at the University of Wisconsin on the making the bird flu more easily transmissible. But I think that same charge applies to the work that we're seeing in Wuhan and the associated work in the United States by these people who are incredibly well funded. I mean, EcoHealth Alliance gets a lot of money from corporations and through the U.S. government and so on, and they are, although they just recently got cut off from some U.S. government funding, but they had a full spread in the New York Times basically saying, "We're the solution. Fund us more." I think grossly ambitious people fits the bill here.
Who is Ron Fouchier?
Sure. Ron Fouchier is a scientist in the Netherlands who used NIH funding to make the bird flu more deadly, to make it transmissible through the air. And this caused a furor, or not a furor, but it got some notice in 2011 or so. It was, I believe that he outright said, he proudly said that he's created the most deadly pathogen yet. A lot of people said that he shouldn't publish the results. They eventually were published.
Does this essentially provide some kind of a roadmap to people about how to make something like this?
Right. The work that he did was using ferrets to passage a virus through a series of ferrets, in this case the bird flu, until it became transmissible by air, so that it would mutate until it acquired that capacity and would be able to infect humans. So he made something that was deadly, far more transmissible, and therefore far, far deadlier. And this caused some concern in various quarters, but not enough to actually stop this work from being done. He was, Francis Boyle would call him and many of these other people death scientists.
Who are Mark Lipsitch and Allison P. Galvani, and what did they write regarding Fouchier's work in 2014? I can actually I'll just give you this quote. We argue that the two main benefits claimed for these experiments, improved vaccine design and improved interpretation of surveillance, are unlikely to be achieved by the creation of potential pandemic pathogens, PPP, often termed gain-of-function experiments. Who are these guys and what were they trying to accomplish?
They're scientists at Yale and Harvard, and they have been some of the people who are sometimes vocal on this issue and cautioning against this kind of extremely dangerous lab work. I believe that I've seen some media by at least one of them since our current pandemic, but not on this issue. There's the loud crowd of people who are part of doing this dangerous work, and they're very loudly denouncing any effort to scrutinize it. But you have, I think, a lot of scientists who are very careful people for whatever reason, either if they're cautious by nature or they don't want to go against where a lot of government funding is being done. And they're remarkably quiet on this very question. So the media mantra that there's scientific consensus that this didn't come out of a lab is not true.